report and feedback on attending Interbull in 2023. You can see here it was a joint EAAP, WAAP Interbull 2023. On the bottom left is the venue, the City de Congress. It looks like a bit like a spaceship when you walk up to it, but that's where it was hosted. And that Mohawk thing is the train station in Lyon, which was quite cool to see. Okay, so what is Interbull? Some of you might be asking. So Interbull is a permanent subcommittee of ICAR since 1988 and is managed by ICAR appointed multi-country group. Those of you who know that Dr. Yapi and Dr. Bobby went to the ICAR meeting earlier this year, that was the International Committee of Animal Recording, and Interbull is a subcommittee of that. So it is basically a component and a working group of ICAR as well. And Interbull is basically, there's quite a few segments to it, like the steering committee and the advisory committee and the technical committee. But the main things is that the SAC, or the Scientific Advisory Committee, proposes new methodological developments that ensure strategic direction, ensure scientific soundness, and promote the long-term progress of these Interbull services, such as Mason and Interbeef. And then the technical committee reviews technical issues that ensure that they consistently provide a high-quality service. So you can see there's just some infographics on how Interbull works, and that we have these business meetings once a year. And Interbull is based at Uppsala, the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, and the European Commission is involved. That's why it was EAAP as well. Okay, so what are the benefits of Interbull? Well, there's a nice bubble plot there that I got from the website, and in all, Interbull is quite a high, how would I say, high caliber conference, or congress to be attending in comparison to a lot of the other ones that I have attended. And Interbull allows for the presentation of novel as well as realized developments in animal breeding. I'll show you a few of them later in this presentation. There's a very big focus on the new and or existing model development, such as the MACE model, or claw development, cheese making properties, software development. We all know about Mix 99, the BLUP software we use, and there's other ones like BLUP F90, and there's quite a new few reliability and accuracy estimation programs that they were doing, processing enhancements, as well as presentations of new ideas, quite a few novel ideas, and extrapolations on current methods. Like one of them was the multiplicative method, and then now instead of it being discrete, they've developed a continuous method, which I thought was really cool. It also allows for a great allowance of networking with some of the most widely known names, especially with animal breeding and model development and software, as I said, in the international community. And it's also an opportunity for us at SA Studbook to compare our standard, or the caliber of our service, the level at which our evaluations are, with other breeding organizations from Europe, Asia, America, and even the Australians were there. Okay, so Interbull 2023 this year was held as a combined congress with the European Animal Production Association, that the EAAP, or Federation of Animal Science, and the World Association for Animal Production. Ours was mainly on Saturday and Sunday, which was the 26th and 27th. And then on the 28th, we got to go to the WAAP shared session, where on that day, there were 2,500 delegates, while on the Saturday and the Sunday, there were only 250 delegates. So it was a little bit more intimate at Interbull, and there were over 50 presentations given over the weekend, as well as the 2 open business meetings. And there were also parallel sessions. So there were sessions that I attended and Dr. Helena attended the other sessions that ran concurrently with some of those sessions. I myself submitted an abstract and presented in the session entitled Big Data and Experiences with Single Step, and I did it based on the Beefmasters. You can see at the bottom there, I am in a discussion panel, which I was not aware of. And because of that, I really didn't answer anything because I was way too nervous. But the discussion that we did was quite interesting. It was based on two topics. One was the semen companies and ensuring that the data that they publish is in line with that of the breeding organizations. It seems that the battle or the battle between semen companies and breeding organizations is not not a unique problem faced by South Africans. It's faced by other breeding organizations around the world. And it made me think of our little endeavor with Viking genetics, that it first started out with an issue on the inbreeding coefficients not being reported accurately, but then it has developed into a relationship now where they share the genotype so their bulls can have South African genomic breeding values, which I think is really good. And the second chat was about the better software and using the computational resources that we have in a more efficient way. And that made me think of, especially when we moved over all the small stock breeds from pest to mix, and we reduced the amounts of runtime for the genetic evaluation. So yeah, that was quite a fun little discussion. We attended these open meetings. This was my first Interbull, so I was really just taking it all in, getting to understand the different working components of Interbull. But here basically were their strategic priorities. So they have these objectives, they have 6 key strategies and then objectives underneath the strategies. So I thought that was good to see. They show their global reach. You can see there at the bottom of Africa, we are highlighted red, and we participate within the dairy evaluations. Although I do know Dr. Bobby and Dr. Yopi in their report at ICAR showed interest in potentially becoming a member of the beef evaluations. But that will obviously is a developing story. And then they just went over the Interbull news services, and I'll go through some of them now. There's a very nice presentation by Valentina Palucci on basically what I'm going to show now. So basically, all the new developments that were discussed at the open meetings are given by the working groups. So these are researchers based around the world at their respective breeding organizations, and they work with other researchers alongside Interbull in order to improve the services, develop better models, assess whether the models are actually correct and working. So yeah, it was cool to see that they are looking at the new promising traits. So like feed efficiency is something being looked at. Gestation length was a topic of conversation, and I have seen that the Irish look at gestation length. A lot of talk on claw-related traits, like digital dermatitis, hemorrhages, ulcers, all those dairy-related, for those guys that work with TMR dairy herds. Maybe they've got people trimming the hooves of those cows there. On the right here, there's a new development on the interbeef side. They now, apart from just adjusted weaning weights and these calving traits, there's now an international evaluation on carcass traits for these breeds that are up here, and you can get values on carcass conformation, fat, and weight. So that was interesting development to see that stuff that we already report on is now being put at in an international level. And I understand it's taken a lot to get there. A lot of I see how much these guys have been working on. It's quite insane. And then just genomic pre-selection and moving, further testing of the new model that includes whole genome sequences, which is quite interesting. Then on the validation side, they've just been validating the GEBV test. making improvements, as well as working on the reference center, just to allow people to use the values as well as the benefits that it has, because it seems that not a lot of members are still actually using this. It seems that it's the smaller countries that don't really have an in-country evaluation that is reliable, so they are still using these values. And here you can see us. This is a networking session. There's Dr. Helena walking back. There's Romy, we can see from Weatherby. So yeah, it was quite an intimate weekend. Some of the exchanges, this is quite interesting. So on the right here, the genetic traits data exchange. So you can see these are all the deleterious mutations that we have started reporting in our reports, and these are shared. There's pollness, there's the A1, A2 milk. They've also got dumps, mulefoot. So it's good to see that a lot of the traits that we've started reporting on, the deleterious mutations, are also here and being reported. And this is able to be shared for all the animals in the data exchange. The GenoX, the parentage SNP exchange. Now they've got a parentage discovery panel. So instead of just the parentage verification 200 SNPs, which I know Dr. Bobby uses on the beef, there's now 354 SNPs that you can use for parentage discovery. So that obviously has its associated benefits. And by making sure that the genotype is available for everyone to use, that also eliminates the cost of duplicating the genotype, because maybe there's a bull and we've genotyped him in South Africa, the Americans genotyped him, the Japanese genotyped him, and the Danish genotyped him. Now there's 4 genotypes of the same animal. Let's just have one that we can all share. So it eliminates that cost. And then the genomic data exchange is quite interesting, that you can share the full genotype soon with everyone. There are countries already participating in this. It was earlier. I think Japan and a few of the European countries are doing it. And it's ready for all the other breeds. Currently, I think they're doing it mainly with the dairy breeds, but now with Interbeef, the exchange of genotypes internationally will be mainstreamed, it seems. Yeah. Networking, quite a lot of people to see there. Here's me, and this is a girl that I did my master's with. Her name's Nokatula. She's now at Wageningen University she puts collars around Holsteins and tracks their movements and correlates that with their production and their health. So that's quite interesting. I met Romy from Weatherby's, and we spoke about those DNA extraction issues we've had with Dr. Sneeman's project. And just getting to know her a bit better, how long she's been working there, what other services they provide. On the Monday, I spoke to the exhibitors where I met Helene from Neogen UK, and I was speaking about her genotyping in Scotland. And I understand that Dr. Sneeman is using this lab at the moment because they don't charge extra for blood extraction, which I found interesting. So it might be a viable alternative service provider for us, especially if they can bring down the cost of the genotyping for the breeders. And then I've also made an inquiry about a goat genomic chip service, because Dr. Yapi's just spoken about the Angoras, and I'm aware that Dr. Sneeman genotyped about 400 Angora goats in the last 4 months at this lab as well. So I'm keen to see if that might be an alternative service we could provide for the goat breeds. Then I also met the Mix 99 team, all those Finnish people, Taskinen, Ladawa, very nice guys. Spoke to them about convergences, and I heard terms that I didn't really understand, but you just nod and smile and nod, just to make them keep talking, and hopefully they think you understand. But I have a lot of reading to go up on convergences. I thought I had an understanding, but it seems there's quite a bit more to understand. And then the other girl I met was that Saya, I don't even remember her name, Miss Ten Hoonen from Viking Genetics, that lady, the inbreeding specialist working with Eva. And I got to chat to her about questions on truncating data sets when doing these types of analysis, because the computer usage is quite hectic. Then I got
Jason,
yes.
who are you? Who's in that picture on the
Oh,
right?
this is Gianola, the Uruguayan researcher.
So, yeah, I know him very, very, very well.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
spoke to him
Same.
on the first day. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Okay, then I spoke to Ezekiel Nicolazzi, Rodrigo Mota, and Paul van Raden. They're doing some haplotype discovery. So I was asking them about a few ideas. Tracing back in the pedigree is something that they do, and gave me and Dr. Helena some ideas for that Drakensberger QTL. Then obviously I met Gert as a geneticist working at DataGene in Australia. His talk was interesting, and people say his talk was on the integration of the MACE breeding values into the Australian genetic evaluation, and they didn't really see any significant changes in the accuracy or the breeding values. And then someone stood up and said, is it maybe because your genetic correlations are lower there or different to the rest of ours for the traits, which made me giggle because we've had those conversations, and it seems to still be a topic there. And then one of the most interesting presentations, which is some of these shots, and if you guys have been reading them, you'll see it, they're quite interesting, was this young Russian guy who's about my age, Yuri, from Breed Eye. So you can see here, he's got that Farmer X and Farmer Y. One of them has started using GEBVs and genotyping since 2017. So for the last 5 years, we might have a breeder in a similar situation. And Farmer Y with a breeder with who only started genotyping recently, but loves using foreign breeding values and indices to pick those AI and sex semen. So Farmer X and Farmer Y, I thought, are good examples of the type of breeders that we deal with and the associated problems that come from both X and Y. And here at the bottom right, where it says farmers don't see instant production increase and don't want to invest in long-term initiatives without instant profit. That was one of the barriers to genomic selection. So I think I'll share this whole presentation from this Yuri guy with the dairy TAs. And this violin plot at the bottom is the green distribution is the average genetic level of the animals in his herd. And then on the right is the average genetic potential of the sires that he used. So you can see that consistently from about 2015 to about 2020, he used sires that were on average more genetically superior than his herd. So he's increasing the genetic potential of his herd. And then in 2022, you can see there's a spread of sires. And then he had this graph for also the animals that they culled. So did you cull your genetically superior or inferior animals based on their birth year? So I thought some of those graphs were very easy to understand. So it gave me some ideas. Okay, and then the highlights, there were a lot of presentations, as I said. On the first day, some of the ones that were interesting was like this methods to estimate erosion factors of genomic breeding values due to long distance linkage oh, I give up. Lots of words there. But basically, you just need to keep updating the reference population with animals from every generation in order to continuously capture the genetic effect between markers, especially if you're doing a two-step or you're using a marker-assisted selection. You need to capture the true genetic effect at every generation level for those markers, because they change because of the way that the meiosis works. It's quite interesting. Paul van Raden gave a speech on clones. I did not know clones were big in dairy, but they are. This person has 2 clones, and each of those clones has over 1,000 daughters. So like clones and clones. Now I understand why the inbreeding is a topic of conversation still, because it's a lot of animals are having the same clones are having so many babies. It's quite insane. And then what was interesting is that now it seems there's a lot of focus. It seems that bioinformatics and IT guys are moving into this space. And so they're reporting on what type of servers that they use. Linux, this is how large their RAM was, their CPUs, and how much hard disk space. So I think this might be a little aspect we could start introducing, just to let them know that we also use good hardware, not just good software. So I thought that was good, and all the different models that can be done in the mix.
Jason, what was the issue on GPUs? Because a lot of these softwares moved over from CPUs to GPUs.
There was only one chat on GPUs on the first day, and it was about using the GPUs to lower the processing time and things with the CPUs. Yeah, but I'm still getting there with the understanding of the GPU.
I mean, Bolt was developed basically making more use of GPUs than the CPUs, and the group at Edinburgh also worked on that. Mike Coffey and them. He had a few papers a few years ago just on using the graphic processor rather than the normal CPUs.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. I thought Bolt was an e-hailing cab service, not a program.
No.
It's called Bolt. Okay, I'll have a look.
No, Bolt was basically developed by Darian Garrick and what's the other guy, formerly from Colorado State. They developed, and one of their sons, I don't know if it's Darian's son, and they started looking at the whole matrix algebra thing, and the gamers, the computer gamers, basically using the same algorithms in terms of processing, where you don't need a huge PC or a server, but you have to put a very, very good graphics card in with a lot of RAM on it. And that to speed it up, because they're breaking up the matrices in smaller portions, as within the gaming industry, games, computer games, and making use of those algorithms to speed up the processing time, especially with genomics.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, and then just here you have these different models, and then I like this. I thought this like pie chart or overlapping graph of the rankings of the size is just a different idea of presenting whether the different models overlap with each other and agree with each other. The second day, the deregression of genomic breeding values for test day traits, that was quite interesting because my master's, I did a bit of deregression. So it was good to see that. This identification, there's a new haplotype in these Holsteins. This one is to do with recumbencies or like muscle weakness. And you can see there's a very nice peak there. And then they actually elaborated that there was a haplotype that caused this partially, but it was like incomplete penetrance. And then more recently, there was a mutation within the mutation that caused death within 2 to 4 weeks. So then here, the more recent mutation in the haplotype. And then we can see that the homozygous defect, the blue line, is the one that doesn't really cause the problem, but the number 3, the red one, that one is the problem. So you can see that the haplotype that has incomplete penetrance is spread in the population a bit more, and the one that causes death has increased, but not as fast. So I thought that one was interesting. And those are the guys that I spoke to about the Drakensberger QTL, and they said, good luck, it sounds interesting. And then the importance of cheese making. This reminded me of that project that Prof. Meissner did with the milk flocculation, but instead of doing the Azerol test, they time the curd firmness, the how long does it take for the curd to get a specific thickness. So they've got quite a few measurements that they then put into a mixed model equation, and they produce breeding values for animals with better cheese making properties. And this is within the Holstein breed, which I didn't know actually was used to make cheese. I thought it was the milk cow, not the cheese cow. So that was quite interesting to see, and that if you measure the correct phenotype, as they do here, by measuring the times that the milks take to coagulate and stuff like that, you can get a really accurate model that identifies the genetically superior animals for cheese making. So I thought that was an interesting presentation that day. And then a big emphasis is now on claw traits. So I showed you that the Interbull working groups, one of the highlighted areas of interest is claw traits. There were two presentations that ran concurrently. So one of them is a single-step genomic evaluation of these traits in Holsteins, Montbellier, and Norman breeds. And then the Czechs have also got it in their Holsteins. Those of you that know me, I love watching the Hoof GP on YouTube, and I watch these hooves get trimmed, and I am very accustomed to all of these different claw health traits. And I am aware that Prof. Esty did a project with that girl that I spoke about, Nokatsula, earlier, and she did it on phenotypic and genetic correlations of claw traits in the total mixed ration versus pasture-based. So it will be interesting to see if this could become a realized development in South Africa, if the Dairy Smith people have actually been recording. I know they do everything on paper, so it might be just hard getting the data onto a computer. But yeah, this one I thought was cool and might be something worth looking at. So yeah, thank you very much for sending me there. I had a lot of fun presenting and meeting all the people. I have a much more in-depth report that I wrote, but I will send it to the relevant stakeholders. And yeah, thank you. I had a good time.